If I could have everybody's attention, I'd like to go ahead and start the service. Thank you all for coming here today, braving the bike traffic. I had my time adding to it from Thursday through today, so I added to the melee a little bit. Please silence your cell phones unless you're medical or law enforcement personnel. Do a couple of housekeeping rules here real quick. You should help yourself to drinks at any time, hot or colder in the refrigerator, hotter on the table in the back. Restrooms are down the hall. And I'd like to have Amy light the candles symbolizing unity of body, mind, and spirit to start the service. Things always give people a fright. Press it back.
Yeah. Go do that. Yeah. Somebody I knew would have sent out.
Please stand for the invocation or remain standing for the first hymn. Dear Father God, we give thanks for this time today. May we feel your presence and be able to express the joy and happiness in our life through that feeling. May we sense your presence in all that is around us, all that is living, all that exists. May we feel the equality through that sense of your presence in all lives. Amen. Amen. The next portion of the service is a thought for the day from the pastor. I've been riding my bike since Thursday, enjoying what I like to enjoy, and seeing a lot of interesting things. And it came to me that why do we want to embrace a consciousness of God? Most of us want more happiness in our lives, more joy in our lives, and a firmer sense of peace about the world around us. These are actually our emotional states of being that we can feel at our own will. Being connected to the presence of God tends to produce these things within us, but they're expressions of our emotions. They're not actually the presence or the connection to God's presence. When we're connected to God's presence and we actually feel that presence, it is a deep feeling about the goodness and just the contentment with the world around us. It's not so much an emotional expression as it is just an inner feeling of stableness, of constant energy, constant being. It's hard to describe it. It's something that you have to feel. But what happens is most people look for joy, peace, and happiness. They meditate, they feel real happy and joyous and peaceful. Then they go out into the world and they go, wow, what happened? You know, what happened? Is God really here? And it's the same thing that happens to people that base their connection to God on having happiness, joy, and peace in their life. That's your responsibility. That's not God's responsibility to offer that to you. That's your responsibility. That's your choice to put that in your life. So don't blame God if you're not happy or joyous. The presence of God is constant. It doesn't fluctuate with our states of mind. So what we need to do is just be as quiet as we can, and right before we have that initial reaction of peace and joy and happiness, there's a silent connection to the true creative force of God, the true presence of God, prior to feeling that flush of relaxation, of happiness. There's just that moment of utter silence where we begin to touch in. And then immediately our mind takes over and produces the emotion. But we want to try to hold that moment of connection, that moment of true feeling of God's presence without allowing the outer emotion to react. Because then when you feel that, it's always there. It's always underneath. It's always present. And after a while, you begin to have it affect you in a subconscious way. You begin to be where you need to be without realizing you need to be there. You begin to say what you need to say without thinking about what you're saying. And I know sometimes we do that and regret that. There is that time when you just say something without really thinking about it, and it works perfect. That's the presence of God speaking through you in an unconscious fashion, and that's what being aware of the true presence of God within you is. We use it at all times in our lives to guide us without really realizing that's what it is. But when we feel that silent presence more and more and more, and become more aware of it, then it begins to speak to us in a greater fashion. It begins to speak to us in a more consistent fashion. One of the keynotes of it is trust. That's the key thing to feeling that presence, is trusting it and acting on it. And once you find that trust and bond with that, that's when God begins to work constantly. You're aware of God working constantly. God's always working through you without you consciously being aware of it. When you recognize it and acknowledge it, it begins to become more present in your life. You're more consciously aware of it and can act on it. The other night we were at this rally at Cabbage Patch. Me and my wife are there, and we hear this thing out, being announced. We're getting ready to have a wet T-shirt contest up under the tent. And my wife says, "Let's go watch that." I said, "No, hell, I'm gonna wait till the guys get up there." So she laughed, and we went on inside. She drinks, I don't, not much, but she does have a couple of drinks. So she's having a drink, and we're standing there, and this guy must have been as big as a mountain standing in front of us, wearing a blue jean vest, and I got a blue jean vest on. Hardly anybody there had vests on. I guess they were a little afraid because the outlaws and the pagans were walking around there, and they didn't want to produce any kind of threat. But me and this guy's wearing our vest. He goes, "I like your vest." I said, "I like yours too." So after a few minutes, he moves out of the way, and there's this big hole there. So I said, "Hey, let's step up here and get a little closer to the stage," because the band was playing. So as soon as we stepped forward, this fight breaks out right where we were standing. This big guy was thumping on some guy. Another guy stood up, pulled out a knife, and he slapped the knife out of the guy's hand, whipped him. Here comes security. My wife says, "That just happened right after we stepped away." I said, "Well, I used to be psychically drawn to the fray, but now I'm psychically warned about it and we move away from it." So that's being inspired in an unseen fashion. You find yourself being moved all the time in your life like that, where you don't know why you do things, but you just do them, and it works out great. That's being tuned into the true presence of God. It's kind of funny because visually a lot is affected by that. I bought a pin for my vest. I'm real picky about what I put on my vest. And it said minister on it. And I put it right under the patch that said, "Respect all, fear none," is what the patch says. And I put the minister's pin right underneath it. And before that, I'm holding my wife's hand and I'm getting hit on by girls, and just literally, and they're all ages, 16 to 60. And as soon as I put that minister's thing on, it stopped. It stopped But, it's kind of interesting again. I was drawn to that booth. There's 1,000 pins, and I kept being drawn to this one board. And I'm looking, none of that. And then I saw the minister's pin, and I said, "That's what I'm supposed to buy." So I bought it and put it on, and I'm proud of being a minister. minister. I don't care what reaction people have, but again, it creates an awareness within you when you do that kind of thing. So I just ask you to think about trying to feel the true presence of God in your life, not the emotion that it produces, not what you want from being connected to it, but the actual living presence of God in your life. That's what bears all through. That's what is constant. That's what allows you to have a platform to stand on when you're done being emotional and done being human. For you say, now what? Then that comes out in you. So just trust that presence. Know that it's there and believe in it. Thank you. The next portion of the service is the healing portion. We have Marty and Judy do the healing today. Ashton will lead us in the meditation. As soon as we start the service, we'll start the service with reading the prayer for spiritual healing on the back. I ask the great unseen healing force to remove all obstructions from my mind and body and to restore me to perfect health. I ask this in all sincerity and honesty, and I will do my part. I ask this great unseen healing force to help both present and absent ones who are in need of help and to restore them to perfect health. I put my trust in the love and power of God.
Good morning. Get ready for the meditation. Find a comfortable position to sit. So there is no stress on your physical body. Take a few deep breaths. And relax your body. Let go of the thoughts that are on your mind. Any worries, any concerns you may have at this time. With your breath, just release it. Let it go for now. Bring your focus and your awareness to your breath. Follow the motion of your breath. While you breathe, feel the peaceful sensations flowing throughout your body. With each inhale and exhale. With each breath, feel your body relaxing more and more. And settle into a very peaceful and quiet state of being that feels very calm and soothing. Connect with this peaceful presence. And become one. Experience the peacefulness of your consciousness. As you become aware of this peaceful presence, Become still with it. Where nothing can interrupt it, nothing can distract it. While you maintain this stillness within your consciousness, feel your breath. Feel your breath. And the peacefulness of your breath. That is flourishing, nurturing your body, your mind, your spirit. This is the breath of God. Feel this breath as you inhale and exhale. The breath of God that keeps you alive. As you connect to this presence, feel your consciousness shifting higher. Higher above your head. And as you look up, see an influx of golden energy, healing energy that is coming from the divine source, coming down to the top, to the crown of your head. Healing and clearing your mental body. Release and let go of the thoughts, the beliefs that are imposed upon you. Conditioned thoughts that are limiting your infinite potentials. As you release and let go, feel your mind opening up to the creative mind of God, to infinite creativity, expanding your awareness to a new perspective that has infinite potentials. Become aware of this presence. And let it transform through your thinking process and through your actions and inner actions. Feel the energy coming down to your forehead. Beautiful golden healing energy circulating around your forehead. Activating your pituitary glands. Activating your third eye chakra to its full potentials. enhancing your telepathic communications, where you are able to see, hear, and feel the spiritual realms, where you are able to communicate with ascended masters, light beings, spiritual guides and teachers. You can also communicate with those who are in the spirit. See this energy opening your third eye. See it moving down to your throat, healing and clearing your throat chakra, clearing the blockages from your throat, where you are able to speak up your divine truth. Rise above the beliefs that were conditioned upon you and speak up your truth. The energy coming down to your heart chakra in the center of your chest. See this golden energy circulating around your heart chakra, healing and clearing the blockages from your heart chakra, and enabling you to feel God's unconditional love and compassion in your heart. Opening your heart to be able to give love and receive love. Feel your heart chakra expanding and contracting with your breath, opening up to God's unconditional love. Connect with your heart. And feel the presence of God in your heart. God is a loving God. God is compassionate. Become aware of this presence that is within the core of your heart. And connect with this presence. And let this love lead you and guide you. Feel the energy coming down to your stomach, circulating around your solar plexus chakra. This is your power center, where the will of God is delivered through your action, through your performance, while you work, while you attend to your needs. Feel the presence of God in action within you. enabling you, encouraging you to achieve your goals, your desires that serves your highest good and the highest good of all. See the golden energy moving down to your lower abdomen and circulating around your sacral chakra, healing your emotional body, release and let go of the emotions and feelings of sadness, emotions of hurt, emotions of pain. See this energy healing these emotions, clearing the blockages. Feel the energy going down to your root chakra at the base of your spine. Healing and clearing your root chakra. Release and let go emotions of fear, worries, concerns, instability, and see this energy balancing your root chakra, and connecting you to the earth as the energy moves down to your feet. You feel a sense of stability and assurance that all is well and all is in divine order. Embrace this knowingness within your consciousness to rise above worries and concerns, for God is aware of your needs and God is providing with your needs. See yourself standing still. Feel your body's mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual are balanced. And they are in accordance with your higher self. This brilliant golden light surrounding you. You feel a sense of wholeness. You feel complete and content. Bring your awareness slowly back to your physical body. Become aware of your physical senses. To the here and now. When you're ready, you can open your eyes. Thank you.
The next portion of the service is our inspirational lecture. Today our lecture is going to be Reverend Bill Morse. Bill Morse is an ordained minister of hands-on healing and holds a doctorate of ministry. Reverend Carol Morse has been doing healing for quite some time, most of her life. And they both are involved in a ministry of healing and health that they promote to the population around them. Bill has spoken here before. He's always an interesting speaker. So without further ado, I'll ask you to welcome Reverend Bill Morse.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Get my cheat sheet out here. This morning we're going to talk about past lives. Some people believe in past lives, some people don't. We're going to look at it from a couple of different angles. But first I want to start with some of the basic mechanics. To start out this service, Amy, is it?
Yes.
Yeah, Amy lit 3 candles for us, representing body, mind, and spirit. And I'd like to talk about what those 3 things are a little bit, because those 3 are what make all of us up. The first one is body. I look at body as our rental car. You know, that's the vehicle that we're in for this experience, the time that we're going through life this time. Eventually that rental car is going to wear out. We're going to leave it by the road. We're going to keep going. The mind is the computer. It's what we use to judge, to rationalize, to compare. It stores the memories of our current life. Actually, our mind tends to get us into more trouble than good things, because it talks us out of good things and talks us into not so good things. But that's our mind. But our spirit is the third and really the core of what we really are. That's the part of us that is eternal. It's always been there, it'll always be there. And an interesting aspect of our spirit is that it retains all the memories of all the experiences that we have ever had since the beginning of what we call time. And we're going to talk about time in a little bit, but time has no beginning, it has no end. We have a manifested universe here, but before that there was still an existence of time. Some of you may have heard the term Akashic record. Our spirit, I equate that to another term, our higher self. That's the part of us that is in contact with that Akashic record. That's where all the knowledge of all the ages is stored. That's also the place where we connect to one another, because all of us connect to that same big higher self. In spiritualism, we have laws, natural laws, and we have a law of one. The law of one says that we are all one, and that's where we are connected together, is in that realm of higher self through our spirit. So we've been around since what we call the beginning. The beginning is actually referred to twice in the Bible, in Genesis and in the book of John in the New Testament. In Genesis it says, in the beginning God created the heaven and the earth. Well, how can the beginning be when God created the heaven and the earth if God wasn't here before the beginning? So the Creator was here before what we consider the beginning. The beginning, what we refer to, is the beginning of our physical universe. First book of John says, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. Well, there's an eternal conversation about what that word was. I doubt if it was spoken in English. I doubt if it was written down. The word was most likely a sound. And that sound is what science calls the Big Bang. So that is when this universe was manifested. But there was still an existence before that. And we were there all the time. We've always been there and will always be there. So if we've been around for so long, what have we been doing? I'll share some of my past lives with you. Most of us, I was like most of us, a hunter-gatherer. It was a tough life. You're constantly looking for food. You're always hungry. You're always traveling. In another life, I was a queen. On the last day of that life, I saw myself sitting in the castle. There was an invasion of enemy troops. They came in, and I remember watching this spear come right at me and hit me right here. And I remember looking down and saying, huh, that's interesting. After I left my body, I looked down and I could see the king holding me. He was crying. It would have been emotional, but I was on the other side at that point, and we tend not to have emotions as we know them here when we're on the other side. Another time I was a lady in Paris. I was an artist along the river. I could look over the wall. I could see the Notre Dame Cathedral. I had a little stall there. I drew people as they came by. There was a lady who was a very good friend of me on one side, and there was a man that didn't care much for me on the other side. Lonely life. I lived alone, second floor on a narrow street. Last day of that life, I was sitting in a chair doing my artwork, and I had a heart attack and passed away. The lady that I had become friends with came rushing over. The man on the other side, I remember the expression. He went, like this. Like, well, maybe I'll get somebody more interested next time. And then the last one I'd like to share with you, both of those were all, I look at as being positive, constructive, although we all experience things for our own learning. I was a tax collector back in Germany. I worked for the mayor. I was not a nice fellow. I was horrendously overweight. I loved the power that I had. I loved the fear that I reigned over people. I had a wife that didn't love me. I had 2 kids that didn't respect me. But in that case, I guess the Beatles song was right. I had instant karma because I got my hand caught in the cookie jar. The mayor discovered that I was skimming off at the top, and he fired me very publicly. And I was disgraced. And I remember the last day of that life, I'm walking along an elevated walkway, and there's a wall there, and I looked over, and it was about a 30-foot drop to a cobblestone street. And it wasn't anything that I premeditated. I said, yeah, this is a good time to end this. So I just jumped over and I committed suicide. But with each of those lives, I learned something. And each of those lives, I believe I chose for a reason. I believe we choose our lives. We choose the challenges that we meet in each of our lives. And I learned something important from each one of those lives. In looking back or experiencing those, I might judge some of those experiences to be positive or negative, good or bad. But in reality, there is no good and there is no bad. It just is. And it's all for our benefit. And it's all for our learning, or actually for our remembering, because at some level, at that spirit level, we know everything. We've just forgotten that. So we need to talk a little bit about time here. And I'm always fascinated. My college degree was in engineering, so I've always had that connection to science. And I'm always fascinated when science and spirituality come together and agree on things. And science tends to be a little bit behind spirituality. They're kind of discovering things that we've known for only a few thousand years. But we have concocted the concept of time for our life here in this three-dimensional universe. There's actually 4 dimensions that we deal with every day. Of course, the 3 dimensions that we walk around in. But the 4th dimension is time. And because of the uniqueness of this universe, this world, this earth that we live on, we have 3 dimensions. I'm here, you're there, and because of that, I've come up with the idea, well, for that to happen, there has to be a distance between us. And since there's a distance between us, it's going to take me time to get from here to there. But all of those are concepts that we've come up with so that we can rationalize the experience that we have in this life. Quantum physics has shown us that a particle can exist in two places at once. It's shown us that it doesn't take any time at all to travel what we perceive as distance. So quantum physics has kind of opened our eyes to what we believe and what we know through spirituality. Even Einstein realized that time is an illusion. And there's a wonderful video on the internet. I think it's on Flixy, Flixxy. And if you Google "time is an illusion," I'll try to explain what it says. Let's envision time as a loaf of bread. Now, we have to understand that this loaf of bread goes off infinitely in both directions, because as you go along that loaf of bread, you are traveling in time. But if you look at a slice of that loaf of bread, that is our physical universe at any given time. So as we travel along that loaf of bread, we are looking at the progression of time in our universe. Now let's say I'm here, and let's say there's a little green man, 100 million light years away. And that little green guy gets on a bicycle. Well, let's start back before that. He's standing still and I'm standing still. So our slice of time, what I'm going to call our now slice, goes directly through me and directly through him. So his concept of now and what I'm experiencing now goes straight across that loaf of bread. But now let's say he gets on a bicycle and he starts pedaling away from me. Now that slice angles ever so slightly so that that now slice still goes through him, but when it gets to me, it's in the past. So if he's traveling away from me, his now time might be when my great-grandfather was a baby. Now guess what happens if he turns around and starts traveling toward me? That slice shifts the other way, so that his now time is now when my great-grandchild might be 40 years old. So depending upon the relative travel between us, that now slice of time bends so that his now could be my 100 years ago or my 100 years in the future. So that shows us that time is really kind of quirky from what we perceive it. There's another concept in quantum mechanics called many worlds interpretation, or MWI, and I love this. We teach this on our healing classes. And the concept is this, that everything that has ever happened or ever could have happened, and everything that is going to happen or may happen, is all happening right now, right here. And I'll give you an example. A simple example is this. You get up this morning and you say, well, am I going to have coffee or tea? All right, you're in this universe. Your consciousness is in this universe, and you decide, I'm going to have coffee. Well, at that instant, there are now two universes. In one of those universes, you had coffee, and the other you had tea. But your consciousness goes in that universe that had coffee. There's still a universe out there where you had tea this morning, but your consciousness isn't in that universe. So everything that could have possibly happened in time creates a new universe all of its own. So potentially, there's a universe where your parents met but you were never born, where Germany won the war, where there was no war, where the Archduke Ferdinand never got shot and World War I never exists. So all of these universes exist, and this applies to healing, because let's say last week you stepped off of a curb and you misjudged it and you twisted your ankle. When you receive a healing, it is very possible that your consciousness goes from the universe where you twisted your ankle to the universe where you saw the drop off and you judged it correctly and you didn't twist your ankle. So healing is instantaneous because your consciousness shifted from the universe that you used to be in to the universe that you're in now. But again, it shows us the misconception that we have of time. We see this a lot in readings. A reader might give you a message and say, next week you're going to receive a job offer. Well, what that reader is doing is they're looking through that veil between the universe that exists and the universe that is most likely to exist. Now, you still have free will. That job offer may come in the form of a telephone call, and the phone may ring, and you may decide not to answer it. That's your free will. In that case, you didn't go along into that universe which was most likely. You went into another universe where you didn't answer the phone. But that's what happens when physically, mental or scientifically, that's what happens when a reader gives you a possible outcome for the future. I will tell you that from my reading, I am thoroughly convinced that until we release our illusion of linear time, we are never going to completely grasp the true meaning of all that exists in the universe. We have to free ourselves from what we've been trained since birth to believe in. Well, back to past lives, how does this help us? Well, one of the things that we have, and we know that everything is energy, one of the things that we deal with is residual energy. A lot of people call it karma. Karma is a Sanskrit word. It means action. Now, there isn't good karma and there isn't bad karma. There is just action, karma. We also know, and if I remember correctly from physics, I think it's Newton's third law of physics, that for every action there is an equal and opposite reaction. So if we put those two concepts together, for every action that we take, for every thought that we take, for everything that we say, we are creating an action, and the universe needs to balance that. That balancing act is what we refer to as karma. The past lives that we live are to benefit us at that time. But a lot of times we bring residual energy or karma from that life to this life. I will tell you the three most challenging residual energies are listed under one category, and that is vows. We've all been saints, we've all been sinners, we've all been princes, we've all been paupers. We've all experienced just about every aspect of life that we can imagine. And many of us have been monks, priests, and when you enter that type of service, typically you take a vow. And what are the three things that your vows include? Obedience, poverty, and chastity. So guess what? We take those vows in that life. They benefit us well because we need them in that life to learn the lessons that we need to take. But a lot of times we carry them over into this life. A vow of obedience. You can imagine what that causes. Relationship problems. A vow of poverty. Guess what? You have money problems. That could very well be a vow of poverty. And a vow of chastity causes all kinds of sexual dysfunctions. So those are probably the three most dramatic examples of residual energy that come over into our current lives. Just remember, we had those for a reason. We served us well, but for some reason we didn't leave them in the past. We carried them with us. So how do you get rid of this residual energy? Well, the three things that I'm going to talk about today, one is meditation. You get quiet. You connect with that higher self within you. That is our connection to God. That's the telephone to the Creator that we all have within us. You get quiet and you listen. And a lot of times you can have a self-healing, you can have a self-realization, an epiphany, and once you realize that, you're free of it. Another thing is you can receive a healing. A healing is an energetic exchange. And when the healer goes into what I call healing mode, that spiritual energy that they have radiates outward, and through entrainment, it captures your energy and brings it back closer to the energy that is most beneficial for you. And the other thing is past life regression hypnosis, where you can be hypnotized and you go back. That's how I experienced all the lives that I described to you. Couple of things to remember: everything happens for a reason. There are no coincidences in life. So everything that you experience, everything that you have experienced, you've experienced for your benefit. Also remember that there's no such thing as good or bad, there just is. And before the service we were talking, and it is very difficult sometimes with some of the things that you go through to appreciate the fact that everything is a learning experience. It's an opportunity for you. And it's very difficult sometimes to set aside that emotion that we have of things being good or bad. And probably the most important thing to remember is that the most important life that you have ever lived is the one that you're in right now. Because it not only is the result of everything you've learned in this life, but it's also the result of everything that you have learned in all the previous lives, all the previous experiences that you have had since the beginning of time. When Carol and I first met, she said, "Why didn't I meet you earlier in my life?" And I said, well, one of the reasons is because I wasn't who I am now. I had to go through the experiences in my life to get to where I am now. So, and before I close, I want to pay tribute to a pretty special lady. The lady that developed the hypnosis modalities that we learned, her name is Dolores Cannon. She turned 83 this year. She dealt with hypnosis for 46 years. And she stumbled on the concept of past lives when she was doing hypnosis with her husband many years ago. She passed away yesterday morning. Carol and I and our good friend Francis Lord had the opportunity to spend 2 weeks with her a year ago, and again just a month ago. And she was quite a lady. Thank you.